I was fighting for air when my sister leaned in, yanked the oxygen tube from my face and whispered, loud enough for the entire room to hear. Stop faking it. You just want pity. No hesitation. No remorse. My parents stood at the foot of the bed, arms folded, eyes flat, saying nothing as my lungs collapsed in on themselves. But the mistake they all made was assuming I was alone. They didn't see Dr. Cole standing behind them watching everything. And 2 weeks later at Grandpa's will reading he would speak 6 words that ended their entire story. Before I continue, where are you listening from? Tell me so I know someone out there understands what it feels like to face family alone. My name is Evelyn Hart and for most of my life I played the role everyone expected of me. The strong one, the steady one, the daughter who never needed anything. People think that kind of strength is admirable. They don't realize it's usually just loneliness dressed up to look respectable. Growing up, my family didn't dislike me. They just didn't see me. Not really. Not the way they saw Marissa. She arrived 4 years after me like some glittering miracle. The child my mother had always dreamed of. Beautiful, delicate, dramatic in a way that drew attention like a magnet. I remember being 8 years old, setting the dinner table, while Mom bent down in a cloud of perfume and told Marissa she had a special spark. I spent years trying to understand why I never had one. The truth is, I learned early that silence kept the peace. When Marissa cried, I stepped aside. When she wanted something, my parents rearranged their lives. When I needed help, the answer was always the same. You're strong, Evelyn. You'll figure it out. And I did because I had no other choice. The only person who ever interrupted that narrative was my grandfather, Arthur Hale. He was the kind of man who noticed the smallest things. A fraying sweater cuff, a long exhale, the way a child held herself when she was trying not to cry. When I was 12, my family forgot my birthday because Marissa had a recital downtown. I sat behind his old tool shed, staring at the dirt, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. He found me there, knelt with those rough hands and said quietly, "You are a gem hidden in darkness. One day the light will find you." I didn't understand what he meant then, but I held on to his words like a lifeline. As I got older, work became my refuge. I built a career in healthcare operations, learned discipline out of necessity. My lungs demanded it, and kept my distance from the chaos of my family. I lived in a small condo in Denver, surrounded by quiet and clean air purifiers, telling myself space was enough. Then Grandpa died. And somehow no one thought to tell me he'd been declining. They gave me the news after he was already gone, as if my grief would be tidier that way. I should have known that was the beginning of everything unraveling. The day of Grandpa's funeral felt like stepping into a play where everyone else had memorized their lines except me. The church smelled faintly of polished wood and lilies, and every pew was filled with relatives dabbing at their eyes. Grief as performance. I stood near the back, hands clasped, lungs tight from altitude and emotion I wasn't allowed to show. Marissa, of course, sat in the front row, draped in a black dress that probably cost more than my rent. Her shoulders shook dramatically, earning pats and sympathetic whispers from every aunt within reach. My mother leaned over and announced proudly, loud enough for half the row, "Marissa was such a comfort to your grandfather in his final days." What she didn't say, what none of them would say, was that no one had told me he was fading until it was too late. After the service, I slipped into the coat room needing air. That I got Marissa. She cornered me between 2 racks of black wool, her face dry despite the theatrics. "You should prepare yourself," she said, voice low, almost gleeful. "Grandpa left most things to me. The house, the investments, everything." She smiled like she was sharing good news. Some of us were actually there for him. The words hit harder than I wanted them to. I hadn't wanted his money. I'd only wanted the chance to say goodbye. I said nothing. Silence was my armor, faulty as it was. That night my chest tightened. I blamed stress. Exhaustion. The cold. At 2 a.m. I woke gasping for breath, lungs refusing to expand. Terror closed in like a fist. I called an ambulance. After that, everything blurred. Flashing lights, wheels on tile, voices I couldn't keep up with. When my parents arrived the next morning, I expected worry. What I got was irritation. "Evelyn," my mother sighed, arms folded, "you always find a way to complicate things. We have the will reading this week. Your father has paperwork." Marissa didn't look up from examining her manicure. "She's probably exaggerating. She always wants attention." The words hit harder than the failing oxygen. and something inside me shifted. When they left, it felt as if they took the air with them. The ventilator hummed, steady, comforting, until suddenly it wasn't. Marissa stepped closer, smiling that thin, cruel smile she wore only when she thought no one was watching. "You really don't know when to quit," she murmured. Then she reached down and wrapped her fingers around the tubing beneath my nose. Before I could react, she yanked. White-hot panic exploded through my chest. My vision shattered. I clawed at the air, lungs locked, body screaming. "Stop faking it," she said softly, almost bored. "You just want pity." My body wouldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't scream. The doorway blurred, and I thought I was hallucinating. A dark figure stood there, still as stone. Dr. Adrian Cole. His voice cut the air like a blade. "Step away from her." Marissa jolted. But Dr. Cole was already moving. Reattaching the oxygen, adjusting settings, checking my vitals with practiced precision. When my lungs finally loosened and the world came back into focus, he turned, not to me but to her. "What you did was dangerous," he said quietly, cold as winter. "And I saw all of it." Marissa stammered a story about a loose tube, but he simply pointed to the hallway. She fled. Later that afternoon, Nurse Elena Ruiz stepped into my room. She checked my monitors, then closed the door behind her. "I heard what happened," she said. "And there's something else you should know." He told me about the night my grandfather died. How Marissa insisted on being alone with him. How the monitors spiked 30 minutes later. How she sat by the window, strangely calm. How the breathing tube was found slightly displaced. "I'm not saying I know what happened," Elena whispered, "but I know what I saw." A cold resolve settled over me. Then Dr. Cole returned. He pulled a chair to my bedside, exhaustion etched into his shoulders. "Your grandfather trusted me," he said quietly. "He asked me to look out for you if you ever ended up here. And before he died, he left instructions, documents you're meant to receive." The pieces were shifting, aligning, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. And the truth, every buried, suffocating part of it, was finally rising. Finally, the truth was rising to the surface. The morning of the will reading arrived colder than it should have been. Denver's sky carried that sharp metallic gray that always comes before snow, and every breath I took burned through my lungs like winter glass. But it wasn't fear tightening my chest. It was clarity, clean, undeniable, and long overdue. I wasn't walking in alone. Dr. Cole met me at the entrance, coat buttoned, expression unreadable but steady. A moment later, Nurse Elena Ruiz joined us. Small, quiet, solid. She had the kind of conviction that didn't waver once it decided to stand. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded. Ready wasn't the word. No one could be ready for this. But I was done being silent. Inside, the waiting room buzzed with low whispers. My parents sat together, stiff-backed and performing dignity. My mother clutched her purse like a shield, while my father's knee bounced beneath the table. A nervous tell he'd had since I was little. And then there was Marissa. She wore a white sweater dress, impossibly soft, a fabric that screamed innocence and expense. Her hair curled perfectly. Her makeup glowed. To anyone else she looked angelic. But angels don't rip oxygen tubes from their sister's face. When she saw me enter flanked by Dr. Cole and Elena, something flickered across her expression. Confusion, irritation, a tremor in the facade. We were called into the conference room by Attorney Gregory Miles. The space was glass-walled, overlooking downtown, quiet enough that every breath felt amplified. A polished wood table stretched the length of the room, folders neatly arranged at each seat. We sat. My parents avoided my gaze. Marissa smoothed her skirt with exaggerated poise. Gregory cleared his throat. "Your grandfather, Arthur Hale, left very precise instructions. This reading is to be conducted with all immediate family present, as well as the witnesses he named." His eyes flicked to Dr. Cole and Elena. Marissa stiffened. "We'll begin with the estate distribution." Paper rustled. Gregory lifted the first document. The primary residence in Boulder, appraised at approximately $800,000, will be divided equally between Lorraine Hart, William Hart and Evelyn Hart. My mother blinked. My father's head shot up. Marissa bolted to her feet. "That's not right," she snapped. "Grandpa told me the house was mine. He said I'd be taken care of." Gregory didn't blink. "Sit down, Ms. Hart. There is more." She sank back, knuckles white against the table's edge. The remaining investment accounts, he continued, are to be allocated based on separate instructions provided by Mr. Hale. He closed the folder. Before we proceed, we need testimony. The room thickened. Dr. Adrian Cole, Gregory said, Mr. Hale named you as a crucial witness. Dr. Cole rose, posture straight, voice calm but edged with truth. I cared for Arthur Hale for 5 years. In that time he confided significant concerns about family dynamics, particularly regarding Evelyn, whom he believed had been neglected and mistreated. My parents shifted. He asked me to ensure Evelyn was never alone if she was ever hospitalized. My mother inhaled sharply, preparing to object. But he continued. 3 days ago, I entered her ICU room and witnessed her sister, Marissa.Hart, deliberately removing her oxygen tube, causing airway compromise and acute respiratory distress. The words detonated in the room. My mother gasped. My father froze. Marissa's mouth fell open. That's a lie, she burst out. She was exaggerating. She always exaggerates. Before Gregory could speak, Elena rose. I was there, she said quietly. I saw you pull the tube. And I saw you stand there while your sister choked. Marissa let out a strangled sound. Panic, disbelief, fury all tangled together. This is insane. Why would I hurt my own sister? They're attacking me. This is. Gregory raised a hand for silence. Then he reached for a separate envelope. Your grandfather anticipated denial. He left this. He handed it to Dr. Cole, who stepped toward Marissa. His shadow fell over her trembling form. He placed a steady hand on her shoulder and spoke the 6 words Grandpa had written. I saw you. And he knew. The effect was instant. Marissa's face drained of color. Her breath hitched. Her composure cracked like thin ice. What does that mean? She whispered. Gregory answered. It means your grandfather changed his will after learning about your financial misconduct and your treatment of your sister. He left documented correspondence, notes, and accounts of the distress you caused him. He opened the final envelope. Furthermore, Mr. Hale created a separate bequest to Evelyn. My heart pounded. I didn't want money. I wanted recognition. To my granddaughter Evelyn, who lived her life in shadows not of her making, I leave the mountain retreat in Boulder and a healthcare trust ensuring she never worries about treatment. I saw your strength. I saw your kindness. And I was always proud. My throat tightened, not with grief but with finally being seen. Across the table Marissa broke. She dropped to her knees beside me, clutching my hands. Evelyn, please, don't let them do this. I didn't mean it. I was stressed. I was scared. You know me, we're sisters. Blood is blood. You can't just abandon me. I pulled my hands free. All my life I had been the one who bent. The one who absorbed the blow. The one who stayed quiet so the family stayed peaceful. But peace built on someone's silence isn't peace. It's captivity. Marissa, I said softly, I'm not suing you. I'm not pressing charges. I'm not taking this to court. Relief washed across her face. Then I finished. But from today forward, you are not my family. Her smile collapsed. You don't mean that. I do. My voice didn't shake. I'm done carrying the weight of your choices. I'm done pretending your cruelty is just insecurity. You will face your debts. You will face your reputation. You will face what you did. My mother finally spoke. Evelyn, she whispered. This is all so much. We didn't know. You did, I said quietly. Every time she mocked me and you laughed. Every time you praised her for breathing and ignored my achievements. Every time I asked for help and you said, you're strong, you'll figure it out. You knew. Silence fell, sharp, unforgiving. My father's eyes shone. Can you ever forgive us? I don't know, I said. But forgiveness without change is just another performance. If you want a relationship with me, you'll have to earn it. No one spoke again. When we stepped out of the law office, snow had finally begun to fall, soft flakes melting the instant they touched the ground. Dr. Cole walked beside me. Elena followed just behind. For the first time in my life, the air felt clean. I moved into the mountain retreat 3 weeks later. The house rested on a quiet hillside in Boulder, nestled between tall pines that swayed like they were breathing with me. On my first morning there, sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors, And for the first time in years, my lungs filled without effort. No alarms. No tension. Just air. I unpacked slowly. Grandpa's books went into the study exactly as he kept them. Alphabetized, annotated, pages softened by time. Running my fingers over his handwriting felt like touching a memory that had finally learned to speak. I didn't block my parents' numbers. I didn't call them either. Boundaries, I learned, weren't walls. They were doors I controlled. A week later, my father texted that they were working on things. I didn't respond. But I didn't delete it. On Saturdays, I met Dr. Cole at a small cafe overlooking the ridge. He shared stories Grandpa had told him, questions about my work, pride he never voiced to the family, worries he buried because no one listened. Each story stitched something inside me back together. One evening, Elena called. A journalist from a national women's magazine wanted to speak with me, not for scandal but for a piece on resilience and invisible daughters. For a moment I hesitated. Then I said yes. Healing, I realized, wasn't about forgetting. It was about stepping into a life where I no longer needed permission to breathe. In the quiet of that mountain house, I finally understood what Grandpa meant when he said the light would find me. It wasn't about fortune. It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally seeing my own worth after a lifetime of being overlooked. And if you've ever felt like the invisible one in your family, hear me clearly. You deserved better.